I ask you, how much better of a coach can Lincoln Riley be in 2023?
You are Locked On Trojans, your daily podcast on the USC Trojans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, fight on, everyone. I'm your host, Mark Hulkin, and thank you for making Locked On USC your first listen every single day. Whether you're watching on YouTube or wherever you like to download your podcast, we are free. I appreciate your support, and I would appreciate it even just a little bit more if you haven't been a subscriber yet. Hit that subscribe button if you're watching on YouTube. And if you like the episode, hit that thumbs up. Both of those mean a whole heck of a lot to the show. And because we come at you 5 times a week, hit that bell notification button, and that way you won't miss an episode. And as always, to all of you who have been a loyal subscriber, thank you very, very, very much. All right, so Greg Brown, senior defensive analyst, he's in his, mid-late 60s, and Cliff Kingsbury, he's definitely old enough to be Lincoln Riley's older brother. I think Lincoln mentioned he's about 5 years older than Lincoln himself. So as far as experience is concerned, Greg Brown has seen enough in his football career, obviously, but Cliff has seen at least a little bit more than Lincoln Riley, right? I mean, he's been an NFL head coach, and Lincoln talked about how difficult a job being a head coach is these past couple days. He did it on the Trojans Live episode, on the Radio Bird episode, and then also after practice on Tuesday when he spoke with the media. And he wasn't complaining. I don't want him to come across that way. But he was talking about, the different aspects of being a head coach and the implication of, it's there's a lot that goes on and it's not easy. So he said, quote, obviously his experience, and he's referring to Cliff Kingsbury, both on the offensive side will be very helpful in terms of game planning and some of the things that they can do off the field. Having another set of eyes is very, very helpful. And then obviously the added benefit with a guy like Cliff. So he was talking about both analysts that he's just recently brought on. This is a guy that's been a head coach at this level and at the professional level, and somebody that's had to sit in that chair, make those decisions. So whether it's something on game day or it's something just through the course of a normal week, it's always great to have another opinion and kind of an outside perspective that that's maybe not tied to one position. So I asked the question at the top of the show. Lincoln Riley knows that in order for this USC team to develop, as a head coach, so does he. We all have to develop every day. What's this thing? Be 1% better than you were the day before. Okay, that's baby steps. Well, we're talking a little bit more pragmatic here, where Lincoln Riley has to take another step from the growth that USC showed in 2022 to 2023. A lot more writing on it. So, I mean, how often do we hear the players say, quote, I'll do whatever the team needs me to do? Well, Lincoln Riley literally said the same thing after practice on Tuesday. Quote, I've got to be whatever the program needs me to be. And that'll be a little bit different in year 2 versus year 1. That will shift every year because every team is a little bit different. So yeah, having guys in the different areas that you trust makes a big difference there, end quote. So was that coach speak? A little bit, but I think it was more of a sign that, young Lincoln Riley is maturing and not so much humbling himself, but recognizing that, all right, last year he probably took too much on himself, and now he's ready to delegate a little bit more. So when you have guys like Cliff Kingsbury and Greg Brown and, what he's known as the general manager of the program, Dave Emmerich, that makes Lincoln Riley's job easier. Cliff is going to obviously step in on the offense. Greg Brown is going to be advising on the defense. And then, Dave Emmerich, Lincoln Riley can use him as a go-between, making sure that nothing gets lost between the cracks, that type of stuff. All the I's are dotted, T's are crossed. And Lincoln even talked about it. He said, those are guys that, I have extreme trust in and I know can be my eyes and ears. They can occasionally take things off of me so I can be more present in different areas. So there it is, plain and simple. Riley is putting guys in place that he can trust. And that way he can, start focusing on those other areas of weakness of the team that head coaches need to focus on. So I just want to point that out for everyone who thinks that, Lincoln Riley only wants to be involved with the offense. Well, that's not true, at least anymore. There might have been a shred of truth to that in the past. You go with what you're comfortable with. But I don't think that was necessarily the case, so to speak, the case. And I don't think that was ever, there were, like I said, there were at least signs of outward development, I guess we could say, with his actions, backing up his words, by bringing in these two analysts this year. So, Lincoln Riley in year one, 600 pages of notes on his iPad. He was overwhelmed, thinking, all right, I got to be on top of everything. And he probably spread himself a little bit too thin. Year two, you keep adding on to the foundation. You've got a little more comfort. And you said, all right, I know where I got to fix on the defense, and I got special teams, I got offensive areas I can still work on. Let me bring in guys that can help in those areas. So not only is it help the team, but it's also another step in the process of the program's success. Where coaches and analysts can now kind of be plugged in for a year or two. But that's also where where the coaches who are on the outside, they want to come in, they want to be a part of that process. And Riley pointed that out. He said, Cliff sees the opportunity that this is right now, and this is Lincoln's word, which is a cool statement for our program. It's just another example of where we're headed and another great bit of momentum for our program, end quote. So it's not just the 2023 team and Caleb Williams who specifically are going to benefit from this. Assuming that, Cliff is around we know he's going to be around for 1 year, hopefully. We thought he was going to be the offensive coordinator and he was gone, weeks later. But let's say he's around for 2 years max. Because, someone who has already been in the positions of a Cliff Kingsbury, his end goal isn't to be a college football analyst. Maybe at the end of his career, he could be an analyst on TV or, in a supporting role in a locker room. But for right now, no, this is just a kind of a pit stop. So assuming he's around for a year, 2 years at the most, Miller Moss and Malachi Nelson are going to have like a great guest speaker for a year or two. And, keep in mind, this is the same guy who, he coached Kyler Murray recently at Arizona. He was the head coach of Patrick Mahomes at Texas Tech. You're going to be able to say, hey, Miller, hey, Malachi, let me show you what I taught these guys and what I learned working with those guys and pass it on to you. So not only does Caleb Williams get the benefit of another quarterback coaching guru in the room. I was using finger quotes for those who aren't watching, but the younger quarterbacks on the roster, they're going to get a taste of that too. They're literally building for the future. Speaking of building, are you looking for a delicious snack, but you don't want all the sugar and calories, and you got to go try the best tasting protein bar ever built? You got to try this. If you're like me and you don't want to make healthier snack choices, but you don't want to compromise on taste, I've got just the thing for you. Built Bars and Built Puffs. Built Bars are healthy and they taste amazing. Seriously, they are so amazing. You won't even think they're good for you. You've got to try this. And what makes Built Bars so good? Well, for starters, what do I like? Chocolate. And they're covered in 100% real dark chocolate. And they also come in unbelievably good flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, cookies and cream. I'm not sure how Built does it, but these bars taste like a candy bar, and they do it while maintaining all their amazing macros. Only 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, and a whopping 17 grams of protein. And now you don't even need to wait to get a box. For years, we've been talking about ordering Built Bars at Built.com. Now you can get them while you're at your local Walmart or Sam's Club while you can, your specialty flavors at those Built.com. That's right. Head to your nearest Walmart today, walk to the pharmacy section, grab yourself a box of Built Bars. You can pick up a 4-bar box of cookies and cream, double chocolate, or coconut puff. Or if you're near Sam's Club, run in, grab a 13-bar box. They have their hit flavors of brownie batter puff and churro puff. Let me know. Thank me later. How excited are you for the spring game in a couple days? I mean, if you weren't sure before, I'm going to remind you that they're going to be presenting Caleb Williams Heisman Trophy. Yeah, that's be taking place out there on Saturday. So yeah, I know the game is free. Parking is $25, but keep in mind, last year, year one, when Lincoln Riley was still all shiny and new, and Caleb Williams was being taken out of the box for USC fans. USC said there was 33,500. Let's be exact. 33,427 fans came through the turnstiles for the attendance of the spring game last year. Apparently, that's the biggest number since the late 1990s. All right. I was there. I've been to a lot of these spring games. The Coliseum, the remodeled Coliseum, seats 77.5. So let's just say that last year's number seems a little inflated. But with that said, I do think there's probably going to be somewhere close between 33 and 35,000 this time. Again, I don't know how much the Heisman influence will have on that, but I guess if you're looking at it from a family point of view, for $25, you can bring the entire family to see Caleb Williams in one of his, let's just call it, it's a limited engagement this season. Because regular season games, they're going to be a tough ticket. USC only plays 7 home games this year. I'm saying only. They only played 12 regular seasons, so they will be playing 7 home games this year. And I get it. San Jose, Nevada, and a rebuilding Stanford, they don't really move the needle, but that's 3 of those home games. So the spring game, you're saying to yourself, that might be the most competitive game. Look, I think it would be great, especially since USC is going to be moving to the big conference in 2024. It would be a good time to start now to really show your enthusiasm, your support for this football team. Especially this year. I mean, you've got the best player in college football coming back, and you're going to be picked to make the playoffs. And you're going to want to see what the team is capable of early. Because as I mentioned, once the regular season gets here and all the hype really starts building, you're going to find those regular season tickets going to be hard to come by. So this is the time. Get out there. Be excited to see what this team's potential is all about. And Lincoln Riley mentioned he let the scoring system out for this year. for the game. It's going to be the same as last year. And basically what that is you spot the defense 21 points. So if the defense is going to be leading 21-0 when the game starts, last year, the offense did just enough to hold on and win 34-30. So how did they accomplish that? The way that the defense scores is that every time they're going to get 3 points for each turnover, fourth down stop, and a missed field goal. So the defense also can earn 7 points if they score a touchdown or a safety. Obviously, offensively, they're going to score points, touchdown, field goal, extra points, yada, yada, yada. So, as I mentioned, last year, the defense, they generated 30 points. Well, they got that by getting 3 stops on fourth down. And then USC's offense, they got their touchdowns. They got touchdown passes from Caleb Williams, and they got another one from Miller Moss. Austin Jones, as a reminder, went into the end zone from 6 yards out on a run. And then kickers Dennis Lynch and Alex Stadhouse, they both had a field goal each. So if we're putting some prop bets down for the spring game, who scores for USC this year? And let's generate a little bit of excitement for the spring game. Who do you have scoring? I have a few ideas. I think they're going to want to, maybe show Zachariah Branch, maybe Rayleigh Brown, get some of the new guys involved. Rayleigh was around last year, I get it, but will there be any wow plays? That'll have the crowd going woo wow. Will we see any Dorian Singer one-handed catches for a touchdown? How about a Caleb Bullock pick 6? Will that happen? Again, these are just throwing stuff out there, give you something to look forward to when you're at the spring game. I mentioned Zachariah Branch. Will he be used in one of those, oh boy, look at him go type of roles where they put him out in the flat, get him out in the open, and all of a sudden he's juking and jiving and making people miss? Hopefully not too many players on defense are missing. If you happen to listen to the Trojans Trojans live radio show this past Monday night, Lincoln Riley said that without the requisite numbers to split into 2 full teams, the spring game was just going to be offense against defense. So, flipping on my sarcasm button right now, flipped on. Maybe spring camp was too physical. Turning sarcasm button off. Clicked off. So look, there's plenty of time between spring camp and fall for any bumps and bruises to mend and get better. Absolutely, no doubt about that. But now is also not the time to tempt fate. I mean, we're still waiting for Eric Gentry to be 100% healthy by the time fall camp arrives. I don't know if he is on schedule with his rehab, but I did mention that I saw him at practice the other day, and he was in a walking boot. That's for precautionary purposes, probably, but I was, like Riley did say, by the end of spring he'll be close. We'll see. I'm not questioning Riley's opinion. I'm just letting you know, as of this week, he's in a walking boot. He looked like he was walking fine. I didn't see much of a hitch in his giddy up, if that's anything to pass along. So as I was talking about, we don't want to tempt fate as far as, adding any extra bumps and bruises. Look, we all want to see the defense play fast, free, physical, loose, but we also have to make sure that there's a way that the players don't do too much trying to impress their coaches. I'm all about being physical, tackling to the ground, and looking like a solid defense. All there. I'm with you, with everybody. So what are you going to be focusing on when you're watching the spring game? I know my main points of emphasis They're probably going to be, not probably, they will be on the offensive line, especially with the latest news that I'm sure you're aware of by now. If you watched the last episode of Locked On USC, you're definitely aware of it. Cortland Ford has decided to enter the transfer portal. So there's a new dynamic going on with the offensive line room. My other points of emphasis that I'll be focused on, defensive line and linebacker, as I'm sure defense is going to be a main focus for a lot of people. But also I'll be watching how good does Miller Moss look when he's running with the ones. And I want to see him get as much playing time as possible in 2023. And not because Caleb got hurt, but because the team is scoring so many points with Lincoln Riley, and Cliff Kingsbury and Caleb Williams doing so much in the first half of games. And the defense has improved so much that they're keeping points off the scoreboard. That's going to give Miller Moss and the other backups an opportunity to play more in 2023. That's why it's so important for the defense this year to take that next step, to take that next step in the team's development. Going back to what I was talking about, Lincoln Riley. He's got more people around him now that he can trust and feel more familiar with, that they can focus on those areas of the team that he already feels strong about. And he can now start putting his finger on the pulse of the other parts of the team that need his attention. All right, so I was on the Locked On Pac-12 show earlier today with host Spencer McLaughlin, and he used the analogy that USC is the Anakin Skywalker of the Pac-12, that he upset the balance of the force. USC has upset the balance. And I was like, cool, Darth Vader, USC. I like that role. And I was thinking, you know what? When USC arrives in Eugene, Oregon this year, in fact, when they arrive at every stadium this year, play the Imperial Death March or whatever it is. Whenever Darth Vader enters the room, have that playing in the background when USC enters. Look, USC was the one that carried the Pac-12 and West Coast football forever. And they needed to upset the balance. Times were changing, and USC chose which side of the force they were going to be a part of. So eventually peace will find its way again. But again, the Trojan Empire will not be a part of the Pac-12 or West Coast football. In theory, well, in practicality, USC will still be on the West Coast, but they will be more of a national football program brand. They always were, but when the bulk of your conference is situated in the Midwest and the East Coast, your brand, you're looked at differently. And so USC is actually increasing its brand, believe it or not. It's almost like seeing, as far as he was asking, how do I view it? How does USC view the situation? And I kind of look at it as, USC is moving up the social and financial ladder of success, while your mortal enemy, kind of like Newman from Seinfeld, kind of struggles every day to survive. You kind of look around and you're like, sucks for those guys. I'm Jerry Seinfeld. Everything goes great for me. That's who USC is. Pac-12 is Newman. Well, that's part of it. That's one side of me. There's the other side of me that, when you kind of open your front door and you pick up the newspaper and you look around your neighbors and take a whiff of the garbage that's kind of piling up outside, and you realize that, you know what? Your neighbors can't afford the types of services anymore without USC, and it's your fault. So you go back inside and you close the door really quickly because the smell is really offensive, and you only have to deal with it for another year. So you kind of just pretend like, whatever happens, happens. I don't know. I thought it was an interesting show. We had an interesting back and forth. Those were just some of the analogies that he and I were talking about. So make sure you go check out the Pac-12 Locked On Pac-12 episode after you watch this episode of Locked On USC, because you make Locked On USC your first listen and your first watch every single day. It's that important to you. So again, thank you for making Locked On USC your first listen every day. You got the time? Go check it out. Locked On Pac-12. I'll be there. Your host, Spencer McLaughlin's got it going. Does a really good job. And then when you're done with all that, head over to WeRC.com. If you want all the latest news, notes, VIP nuggets that I can't talk about here in 30 minutes or less, you're going to find it over there. But remember, Locked On USC, your first listen every single day, because I'm going to bring you everything you need to know. So until our next episode, everyone, you know what to do.